Oh, okay. Well, I'm in Maine, and it's snowing like heck here.
Well, you know what? I saw that. I'm going to be back up that way in a couple days, so I'm sure the snow will be on the ground.
Wear your boots. Can we get started? I'm recording this, if that's all right with you.
Yes, of course. Please,
okay,
go ahead.
Great, thanks. First question. The UK recently declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Do you think the U.S. should do that as well?
Well, they clearly are. But I guess declaring someone a terrorist organization doesn't necessarily mean anything with this administration. So, yes, I think it might be helpful, but I think what would be more helpful is if this administration actually had a strategy to defeat ISIS. If Hillary Clinton actually had a strategy to defeat ISIS, she doesn't. Donald Trump had a strategy to defeat ISIS, he doesn't. We need to defeat ISIS. Let's just start with that, because they are the most near and present danger.
Hard to argue with that. But Muslim Brotherhood organizations seem to have an influence in the Obama administration regarding training of FBI agents and expunging references to jihad and to Islam and terrorist training and so forth. And
yes, this administration, without a doubt, has been a kind way to say it would be to say overly politically correct. A more accurate way to say it would be delusional. They have been delusional, the nature of the threat. They have been willful in terms of ignoring facts. It is delusional to go to Paris a couple weeks after a terrorist attack and talk about global warming. And it is ignoring of the facts to continue to say our strategy is working and ISIS is contained the day before a terrorist attack. Actually, the day of a terrorist attack in the United States.
Really? Yes, indeed. Could I go back to a speech you made shortly after September 11th in Minneapolis? And it was a long speech on business matters, largely, but you mentioned a couple of things in there. You were concerned for the security of HP employees who are of Middle Eastern descent or who practice the Muslim religion here in the U.S. and abroad. It looks like you were worried about backlash, anti-Muslim backlash. Is that correct?
Well, in that speech, I was worried about the security of every employee.
Yes, you said that. Yeah.
In fact, the morning of 9/11, I was on the phone with all of our security personnel over and over again around the world, because we operated in 170 countries, many of them very dangerous places, and the information we had was that corporate interests were going to be attacked. So I was worried about everybody's safety.
Okay.
But that speech, I was also reminding people of the historical nature, many centuries ago, that cultures can be tolerant and they can lose that ability for tolerance.
Okay. At the end of that speech, you talked about Islam being the greatest civilization in the world for about an 800-year period ending in the year 1600. And you specifically cited Suleiman, the Magnificent, and yeah, he did some good things. He was tolerant in many ways, but he also led a siege on Vienna, one of several. And I wonder, I mean, we didn't tend to know a whole lot about Islam then, but in the 14 years hence, would you still characterize Islam in the way you did back then?
I was making a historical reference, which was accurate. At that time, the world was a very brutal place, and there was brutality all over the world, including, as you point out, in Islam. It is also true that at that point in time in history, Islam was the source of some of our our greatest scientific discoveries. We do not help ourselves by denying history. We do not help ourselves by ignoring the context in which things occur. And we do not help ourselves now by denying that at the core of the Islam faith is a cancer, which is breeding violence and intolerance of unspeakable brutality. I don't ignore any of those things. Okay.
I'd like to go back to an appearance you did on Meet the Press back in September. Chuck Todd first interviewed Hillary Clinton and seemed to be almost worshipful as he did so, and then you came on and he got the daggers out for you. And I mean, the tone was drastically different. I see you as an articulate woman, not afraid to call abortion what it is. But you made yourself a target, it would seem, because it was following shortly after the Planned Parenthood videos, etc. And Todd seemed to be hostile. If you should surge in the polls soon, and do you see the mainstream media as a potential obstacle to your nomination and election?
Well, the mainstream media is an obstacle to any conservative's nomination. Yeah. The mainstream media is hopelessly biased.
Yes.
This is not a news flash. And Chuck Todd was hostile in part because he knows, as Hillary Clinton knows, as the liberal media knows, that I am Hillary Clinton's worst nightmare.
I would agree with that.
I am her worst nightmare because she won't be able to talk about the things she wants to talk about. She wants to talk about the war on women. She wants to talk about the historic nature of her candidacy. She wants to talk about anything but her track record and her accountability. And I will force her to talk about those things. Well, so the fact that the mainstream media is not on my side is not a news flash. The question is, who is going to be our nominee who's tough enough to stand up against that and throw every punch back in their face? And I think I've demonstrated I have the capacity to do that. And we better have a nominee who can, or Hillary Clinton's going to win.
Well, I would have to agree with that based on what you've done in the campaign so far. Yes, you have. I mean, I'm thinking about how they went after Sarah Palin. When she looked like early on was surging in the polls. I mean, she became almost demonic to the mainstream media. So you're expecting that? I would assume that a similar kind of assault on you.
Of course. And will they try it? Yes. Will it work with me? No.
Good.
No.
Good. Glad to hear it. I happen to be, I'm supposed to be part of a team interviewing Hillary this afternoon over at the paper one of the papers I write for.
Oh, well, that ought to be fun.
Yeah, and I'll get at least one question. But if you could ask her one question right now, what would that be?
Why did you lie? Why did you lie to the American people the morning after the Benghazi attack?
That's exactly the one I chose.
There you go.
Yep.
Great minds think alike.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Another Meet the Press appearance. Let's see. Where was I? Yes. Shortly after John Boehner resigned, Chuck Todd then asked you, do you think Mitch McConnell should resign? And he asked you a couple of times, and you basically said, wait and see. Well, it's been a little while since then, and we've had this omnibus budget bill passed by the Congress, and with a lot of help from Mitch McConnell. And have you seen enough to make a decision?
I'm disappointed in the leadership of the House and the Senate. I've made no bones about that.
No, we have.
Disappointed because the omnibus spending bill increases our debt, increases our spending level, and there are a couple good things buried in there, but basically the Democrats got what they wanted. So, yeah, I'm very disappointed. Frankly, all of my energy right now, and I think where most of our energy needs to be for the time being, is selecting a nominee who can beat Hillary Clinton. Because it's pretty clear that without leadership in the White House, you're not going to get leadership that can change things for the better in the House and the Senate. Tom, you've probably heard me say before, there's a big difference between management and leadership. And the political class of both parties are managers. They operate within the system. Well, operating within the system isn't working for the American people anymore. It's why I'm running for president. It's why I've rolled out a blueprint to take back our country. Because until we challenge this system at its core by, for example, radically simplifying the tax code and changing the way the government budgets our money, until we change this system at its core, which is going to take an outsider with the requisite experience, we're going to keep getting deals we don't like. And government is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as it has for 40 years, under Republicans and Democrats alike. We cannot keep doing the same things and expect a different answer.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Okay. In the 2008 election cycle, I asked about 5 or 6 presidential candidates at the time if they knew who the 12th Imam was, the Mahdi, as the Iranians referred to it. Very few knew. Ever hear of him?
Oh, I know. Well, I know that he is, according to ISIS, he is who they are waiting to come back, to return. I mean, he is the instantiation of the apocalyptic end of days towards which they are supposedly fighting.
Yep.
He is why they carry out all this unspeakable brutality. He is at the core of their ideology.
Can you negotiate rationally with people who believe that? I mean, that's actually a Shia.
No, we must defeat them. We must defeat them. And the only way to defeat them is to deny them territory. And the only way to deny them territory, their caliphate, as they call it, is to lead. But it's also critically important that we lead a group of Sunni Arabs to defeat them. They must be defeated. They will not be defeated without leadership and support and resolve and clarity from a commander-in-chief of the United States of America. But it is also true that this evil has to be defeated by Sunni Arabs.
Well, thank you.
Otherwise, it becomes part of their narrative.
It does, and it is, and actually, the Mahdi is a Shia belief, but not really a Sunni belief. But it's similar to what ISIS has for an apocalyptic future, and they're both irrational. If you ask me, I don't think you can negotiate with either one.
All right, I've got to get Carly to her next thing.
Thank you.
Tom, on your very last point.
Yes.
This is on your very last point. This is why Donald Trump is wrong. For example, he has no plan, but this is why he's wrong when he talks about outsourcing leadership to Russia. Because you see, right behind ISIS, as a near and present danger, is Iran. Shia, as you point out.
Yes.
Right behind ISIS is Iran. And Iran is a empire that wants to extend their hegemony throughout the Middle East.
Yes, it is.
Through terrorism and weaponry, and Russia is standing by their side in an unholy alliance.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad you pointed that out. It's a very important point in the dynamics of the Middle East that Hillary claimed.
They are related items, and people who don't understand the Middle East don't understand that. But it's critical that a commander-in-chief do, and I do.
I believe you would. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to ask you some questions, and I wish you a lot of luck in the campaign. You're a great woman.
Yes, Tom, thank you so much, and good luck on your interview with Mrs. Clinton this afternoon.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope it comes off in this weather.
All right, Happy New Year, Tom.
Same to you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Anna.